Hi guys, Gilly Hunt here with my A to Z of Stamping Up products, and we're up to the letter Q for quality and quick, and we're looking at getting quality and speed with the Stamparatus. And those of you who've been following my series will know that there were so many wonderful things about the Stamparatus that I decided to break it down into several sessions, and I'm going to give you 10 sessions, and we're on session number 3. So go look for session numbers 1 and 2 to find out basics, and we're gradually adding each session more and more information and more complex ideas. So we're at session 3, which is quality for beginners, and we're going to look at getting your greetings straight, having a second chance to ink something up, and how to work with textured cards, foils, vellums, and all those sort of things where, if you're not careful, you get smeary, difficult images. So let's get started. And we're going to start with our Stamparatus as before, and we're going to open the lid. And I've already brought up the 2 magnets from where they're normally stored at the bottom, okay? And I've put them either side because we don't want them to touch. So this session, we are going to be just working with this one plate. So this, normally we can have 2 plates, but for this particular purposes, we only need the one. So there's the one plate clicked in and popped to one side for you. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to just show you one of the problems we often have when we're new and we're beginners, and also when we're old and we should know better, like me, and where perhaps you're busy and you're trying to get a lovely image. Let's just pick this image up. Oh, already done it partly. Sorry, that's already been, but no worries. So what happens is you're busy, and maybe you're not completely concentrating when you're inking up your stamp. Or when you're a beginner and you're just learning to ink up a stamp, perhaps you haven't inked it up evenly. Or like me, just then, oh no, I was talking and I've missed this piece on the end here, and I've missed this piece here. Now purposefully I kind of avoided an area there just to give you that patchiness. Oh, aren't I clever? Because actually that's harder than you think to get it patchy. But what I want to show you is that when you're using the Stamparatus, as long as you've held your image down with your magnets, and I would suggest that you do it with 2 magnets most of the time, for this very reason. So let's go back and let's properly stamp up, ink up this image. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why we do lots and lots of little tiny taps all the way across, because that way we don't get patches. Okay. So I am now going to press this down. And we're going to just make sure that it's in context. And remember, we can use the flat of our hand if we want. We can roll across it. We can do all kinds of things. Remember, we talked about it. And now I have a beautifully filled in image. And the reason we've been able to fill in the gaps is because this is rock solid and it stays where it is. And I can go back time and time again and restamp and restamp. And these are really fine, tiny lines, and I'm going to just pick it up to show you. Look how fine and tiny those lines are, and yet how wonderfully solid. You've got no way of knowing which was the bit that's been repatched and which was the bit that was the original. Isn't that wonderful? So that's the one big, huge plus of using the Stamparatus. So I'm going to also show you this tip using, and I'm just going to add some the foam mat. And if you remember from our beginner sessions, the foam mat is so that we can use photopolymer stamps. I'm going to use a photopolymer this time. Okay, and I'm just going to pop that there. whilst I put this in place. I'm going to bring back my magnets. And again, I'm going to hold it down really, really strongly either side. Let me just make sure that mat is right into that corner. We don't want it drifting away and us losing where we're putting things. So here we go. Pop that across there. Pick it up. And what I've done now is I have used really textured paper. And I'm going to show it a piece of the same paper up really close for you. Now you can see how hollowed and bumped and lumped that paper is. In fact, it's a very, very high quality artist's watercolour paper. We have a very good watercolour paper for Stampin' Up, but unfortunately just at this moment I haven't got any in stock. But I do have big sheets and sheets of this, enormous ones, because I do watercolour painting. So this is my painting sheets, and in fact this is more lumpy and bumpy even than the Stampin' Up one. Okay, and also remember it's designed for watercolours, so it's designed to kind of absorb colours and things. So let me find a bit of coloured ink. I've got some, what have I got? Oh, Pacific Point. Okay, and I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to pop that down. Okay. And this is the problem with textured paper. In fact, you can see, if I lift the whole thing up, you can see where the actual ridges and dips are in the actual paper. You can see the little almost a ripple effect, which is quite nice, but it's very patchy. So we would like a nice solid image. So let's go again. And because we can go again, okay, so once again, I'm just going to go over it. And we're starting to fill in the gaps now. Once again, I'm going to go over it, and you have to be a little patient with this because it will take a few passes before you really get to fill in all of those lumps and bumps. Okay, now you could just press harder, but the problem with pressing harder is you're actually going to squish your letters out. You're actually going to spoil the really lovely effect of the letters. Okay. And I'm just going to note that it's the end of the R and it's the beginning of the F that I really need clearer. So I'm going to just very slightly press a bit more on those, and then all the way along here. But I don't want to press too hard because, as I say, what happens is you squash the photopolymer and all you get is a big chunky squished out letters instead of just nicer letters. Now we've got the R filled in, and we're just going to go once again for this F. I'm hoping this might well be it. In fact, what I am going to do is I'm just going to move that a little bit out of the way because that may just be stopping this touching. It's quite so. Okay, there we go. Oh, and it was. Just sometimes if you've got the magnet right up close. Oh look, I've just picked that up on my hands. Sorry about that. If you've got the magnet really close, sometimes what happens is it sort of acts as a barrier and it stops the plate bending in and you managing so well. Right, so let's just give everything a bit of a wipe down because that's the only problem with this, is it gets a bit mucky. But the lovely thing with this is that it's fairly easy to wipe it up. I've just used a little bit of a cloth because I was using that on my hands, but I would normally use my chamois. I couldn't remember what it was called there. My chamois I would normally use to just wipe up any inks. Okay, so there we go. Other than this little splash which was done by my silly hand, there is a really nicely covered piece of textured card. Brilliant. Okay, let's go on to the next thing I want to show you. So the next thing I want to show you is what happens if you want to make a card, and this card I made originally without the happy birthday. I made it without the happy birthday, and then I decided I wanted to add the happy birthday. Well, the fabulous thing with the Stamparatus is you can decide where you want that happy birthday, like that. Let's just do it as if we were doing it. You can pop it in, pick it up, ink it up, and pop it straight down. Absolutely easy as could be to pop that into there. Now that would be really hard because there's a bit of rope, there's several mats and layers, so there's quite a lot of texture and height going on there, and it would have been quite hard to do that by hand. Okay, so that's another good thing that the Stamparatus is good for. That's going back later on and adding a happy birthday wherever you want, or a greeting wherever you want. Maybe add to a picture. I quite often like to add my greetings later because I perhaps haven't decided what I'm going to use my card for. So that's one other good thing. The other good thing you can do with this is, let's get another piece of cardstock, is if you want to maybe choose an image, let me make sure I get this the right way out, and you want the writing to really kind of almost like mould together, so you want the two things to work really well together. Well, here's where I'm going to introduce you to another little thing that you might want to get for yourself, and that is a piece of window sheet. It's just a simple piece of window sheet. Okay, and all I've done is cut it to the right size to fit on here. Okay, so given that we're working with red rubber, first of all I'm going to get rid of the mat, because the mat was there, if you remember, in the early days you only need one bit of foam, so that was to use with the photopolymer because that doesn't have foam. This has foam in the actual stamp itself, so you don't need any more foam. So here we go. We're going to use one of those just to hold this whilst we decide where we want to have this chap. I'm going to pop him on this side, okay? And the first thing we're going to do is just put him, remember, press down, that's all it needs is a very small press. And I've left my memento ink somewhere. Aha, it's hiding under this. I've got so many things around my desk to show you that it's completely vanished under the pile. Okay, so here goes. We're going to put this lovely father and son image in this corner here, and then we're going to get that out of the way. And where has it gone? Here we go. I'm beginning to lose things. Now we're going to place this right up close because I want this to come right in close to his body. But what if I get it wrong? What if I make a mistake? Well, I'm going to need my piece of window sheet. So this window sheet is just what it says it is, a piece of window sheet cut to the right size to go over the image, and there it is on top. Let's hold everything down because we don't want things to move, but before I do that, nearly forgot, before I do that I want to introduce you to one other thing that I have here. Now I could put this into the corner, but a lot of you will find when you get one of these that when you put it into the corner there is a little bit of a spot either side of the hinges where when you fold this over, if you think about it, this is a solid plate but it has a tiny bit of give in it. So anything that's right next to the hinge doesn't have any give at all because it's attached to the hinge. As you go further out it has more and more give. Okay, and you actually want that little bit of give to help you with your stamping. So this is what I make. I make a little corner piece, and all I've done is taken 2 sheets of the thick Whisper White. Actually I think this is very, oh no, it is Whisper White. two sheets, sandwich them together with plenty of glue so that they're really stuck together. And then what I've done on the back is I've added a tiny strip of magnetic tape. Now you don't need that magnetic tape. In fact, somewhere around here on my desk, here it is, I have my 1-inch one, and my 1-inch one was an earlier one that I made and it didn't have any on at all, so that's got none on the back. This one, I've decided just having that little bit of extra tape means it doesn't move so much. It stays in place quite well. I'm not totally convinced about the tape, so I'm not sure I'd be too worried if I was you, but we can always add a magnet anyway to hold it down, can't we? Now what this does is this allows me to use this corner jig to be certain that I've got this in the right place, and that if it moves when we're working, I can always return it to this corner, and as long as I've returned it completely to the corner, pressed right into that right angle, I know it's perfectly in place. Okay, so this is just worth doing. It's easy to cut on the trimmer because the trimmer will allow you to go in and stop and go out and stop. So there you go, into that. And now I'm going to put my piece of window sheet, and I'm going to pop those up there. And I now want to get this lined in place. So I'm going to make a guess, and I'm going to tuck it in as best as I can. So let's have a go. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to ink it up, just as normal. But remember, I've got this window sheet in between now. So when I pop this down, it's only an experiment. That's not bad, actually. I've done it rather better than I thought I was going to do. But I might see if I can just get it a teeny bit further. So I'm going to notice, because on the plate, I'm going to bring it up close to you, there are grid lines. Can you see these grids? It's quite hard to see, but it's an etched grid, which is quite easy to see in real life. It's just hard to see on a camera because of light and shadows. So I'm going to just keep an eye on that, and I'm going to move it over very slightly. There we go. And I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to go again. So let's go again. Here we go. Oh, and that's got it really tight, which is just what I want. So here goes. Now I want to move my magnets carefully because I don't want to move my card underneath at all. But as I say, if you do move it, that was the whole point of having this in place, because you can always put it back in the same place. So let's ink up again. And here goes. Hopefully this will look absolutely fabulous. And I don't know why I'm saying hopefully, because I know it's going to. Now that almost looks as if this is just one stamp with that actually already curled around and in place. So that's the joy of the Stamparatus. You can fiddle about until you get it just perfectly. So this is our quality element. Okay. Let's have another look. Oh, I've got so many things to show you. Let's just move those out of the way. Goodness me, I've got so much here. Right, here's our next thought, and I'm going to put the foam mat in place because we're going to use a photopolymer stamp again. And I'm going to still use my L shape here because I want to pop this here. In the middle, but I also want it just to be nicely squared up, and I know that if this is nicely lined into there, it's totally square with this corner, so that's a really brilliant thing to know. So I'm going to pop my things on there. Where am I going to put that? There. Okay, and I can now perhaps decide where I want to put things. So if I want to put something right in the very corner of a card, I can line it up by eye, I can pick it up, I can ink it up, and in the meantime, if I'd been doing this by hand, I might have kind of lost track of exactly where I wanted to put it. I can line it up, and here we go, give it a press. And look, we've got a bit missing. That's what I say, sometimes the magnets are a little too close. So let's just move that away. But we haven't lost it, we haven't got a problem, there's no issue. I love the Stamparatus. We just go back, we ink it up again, and off we go. There you go. Just beautiful, just clean, just crisp, just quality. No issues. It kind of does all the mistakes and wipes them away for you. Okay, there we go. Now that's fine if we can use our something by eye, but the problem comes when we're working with red rubber stamps. And I have to say, as someone who has been stamping for a very long time, a very, very long time, I have to say there is nothing like a red rubber image. Photopolymer is great. You can see through it, and there are real pluses to being able to see through it. But for complete quality, nothing, and I mean nothing, is better than a red rubber stamp. It also means when you get more advanced that you can do far more interesting design ideas and artistic techniques with the red rubber, which you can't do with photopolymer. So I'm a great advocate of red rubber, and I would hate it if red rubber ever vanished from our repertoire. I'm sure it won't. So I want, let's say, to get these lovely ladies. So let's get them first of all. And I mustn't forget to pop my magnets in place. So let's get our ladies inked up and popped on. Oops. She's going to come above that. There we go. There we are. Zing, zing, zing. There are our lovely ladies together. Now I would like this to be totally lined up. Okay. So I now have to think, how can I get that absolutely lined up? Well, we talked about the grids. So if I bring this grid back for you, okay, there's the grid, you can just see. So I could now say, right, this is the grid line that they're standing on. So I would like this to be on the next one down. So I can use the grid line. There we go. Oh gosh, it's because I'm doing it underneath the camera, it's making me shake. There we go. I'm doing it up in the air. It's much easier when it's on the flat. So I've used the grid lines on this, which are etched. And by looking at the grid line, I can see where that is going to come. And I can also check that it's straight with the grid line. So let's take the ladies off now. And let's put this on. And I've lined it up beautifully. You have to say that's totally straight. But look what I've done. I've put it upside down. Oh my goodness me, silly me. Right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll redesign our card. Just for this little sample. What we'll do is we'll cut that off, pretend it never happened. I can use that as a label for something else. Okay. Say, Gilly, you are absolutely mad as a frog. Let's go again. This time, first of all, let's make sure this is totally. I was so busy looking at whether it was actually lined up. I hadn't really thought about which way up it goes. So it's that way. Okay, so again, I'm going to just pick it up roughly because I want it roughly there. Then I'm now going to have it just above the image, and I'm going to make it totally lined up. There we go. Shall we go again? Now, of course, you're not going to have that because you're far too sensible, far too wonderful, far too good a stamper to do something as silly as that. There we go, nicely lined up just where I wanted it, using the grid system on here. But you're going to get yours beautifully lined up and the right way up. I'm going to leave that in. I'm tempted to edit it out, but there's a little piece of me says, well, sometimes it's good to see that we're all human. So let's leave that. Oh dear, that's got me chuckling now. Right, here we go. On to the next little thing. We're going to have a look at getting writing straight. So we're just going to put this into the jig again because we want it to be nice and square. So that's nicely squared up with the corner. Okay. Now when we get red rubber, there are two things. I'm getting really mucky fingers here. I'm not on a good day today. I'm just going to give myself a little wipe down. Excuse me for a moment whilst I just have a quick, because I don't want to get green. And I don't know where I've got green from. I think there must have been green on one of my stamps because I haven't used green today, have I? No. How weird is that? There must have been green on the back of one of my stamps or something. That serves me right for not cleaning up after myself properly. Okay, now sometimes when we get a red rubber stamp, like this one, you can actually see how straight that is. And when you turn the stamp over, the actual edge of the foam is nice and straight too. So that's really easy because you can line that up and you know that's going to be pretty much spot on straight. So as long as your eye is straight, and you can use the grid lines. Now the problem is when you have something like this one, when you've got Y's and T's and D's and things, it makes for a bumpy edged image. So that doesn't give me, in fact it gives me a sort of curved edge to work to. And this is where bringing in your piece of, and I can't ever see it, here it is. This is where bringing in your piece of window sheet makes all the difference. So pop that over there, pop your window sheet in place, make sure that stays into there. Okay, and here we go. Let's just see if we can get this nice and straight. So we know roughly how to get it straight, but I'm going to be naughty. I'm going to put it just slightly off just to start with. Usually, I have to say, once you've used the Stamparatus a few times, usually when you do it, you'll say, oh, brilliant, I've got it straight away. Okay, but I wanted to do it at an angle just to show you. So we know that the soon is too high up. So there's the soon. So we need to keep hold of this end and just bring the soon down. There we go. Let's give it a wipe. Let's try it again. And that's nicely lined up now. So I can take that off. I can ink it once more. I can ensure that that's nicely in place. So let's pop those back on. And that's why it's important to have this little jig shape, because it just holds it in place, and if you need to move and return it, you're returning it to the right place. There we go. Hope you're back on your feet soon. Beautifully lined up and perfectly in place. So sometimes you can do things by eye, and sometimes you just need that little piece of extra window sheet to help you. Now, the reason I wanted to show you that window sheet is because I also have a slightly more complex window sheet which I've designed. Here we go. And you're going to say to me, oh my goodness, what's that? Right, I have, when I want to go straight to a card, And I have to say, if you're a beginner, this is where it's probably worth closing your eyes, fast forwarding to the little bit, the end where I'm going to tell you all about foil and other cards and how to print on other cards, because this is slightly more advanced. But if you're an advanced crafter, then have a watch, because this is the next stage on. This is what I have now. I have a grid that I use here, which I have cut from the paper, the grid paper, and I have laminated. Okay. I've also got a piece of window sheet, and this time what I've done, and I do this for each and every size of card I have, this is a Stampin' Up standard card size. So what I've done is I've gone from corner to corner, corner to corner, top to bottom, so that I have marked a grid which shows me the exact centre point of this card. I've then taken the 2/3, so I've done it into thirds, which gives me the crossing points of where all the thirds are. And that gives me a really good guide when I come to designing cards. So I'm now going to just place that on there. Okay, and I'm going to do two things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over the top of that. That looked like my washi tape was starting to, my washi tape is just starting, look, to tear. So I'm just going to do a quick running repairs on it. Let's just stick a bit over the top of it. There we are, quick running repairs. Don't want to lose my handle. Okay, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to then use my grid sheet let's use a different image, shall we? I'm going to use my grid sheet to create my card. Now here's my card, and I want my design to be this way. So I want my design to be that way, because then when it opens, that'll be the front. So first of all, I'm going to put my greeting in place. Okay, and I want that to be really nicely levelled and really nicely lined up. So I'm using my grid here for this. Okay, let's pick that up and let's just see if that's where I want it to be. Oh, it is, look at that. And as I say, once you get more advanced, you will learn to get these lined up pretty quickly. So there's that nicely lined up. I can see that it's beautifully lined up to that line, fairly good on the centre. Now, what I also want to do is to take that away now. Okay, so we know that's right. And now what I want is I want to make sure that this is centred, and I want this crisscross line to be in the centre, and I want this to be along the centre. So here we go, that's up and down, that's side to side, and I'm going to put that nicely up out of the way of the greeting. It only just is, isn't it? But it is, so that's fine. And if it hadn't been, I could have always moved them back and forth. So that now gives me the complete greeting. And because I've used my lined up lines, I know that's going to be where I want it. So here goes. And really those lines are almost like when a photographer uses the, you know, when you have the viewfinder and it gives you the grid to help you compose. That's really what they're for. Okay, so here we go. And as I say, for a beginner, please don't sort of start worrying about it, because that's much more advanced. But it does mean that I can now say to you that this card is beautifully lined up, centralled. Everything is where I wanted it. Everything is in line and everything is perfectly lined up. Isn't that wonderful? So let's get on to the last little bit, because I seem to be taking forever and ever. I hope you've not all gone for a cup of coffee and decided you're not interested anymore. So the last thing I want to just show you is how brilliant the Stamparatus is for shiny, difficult surfaces. And all I'm going to do is, we're not going to think about lining things up, we're just going to think about printing things. So let's just go whizzing in, pick it up, pop it to one side, and this is vellum. Now vellum is fine for printing on, but it can sometimes slip and slide and slither, and this is where the Stamparatus is brilliant. That's not going to slide and slip because it doesn't matter. I can push it and shunt it about, I can shake over the top of it, I can do whatever I like, but the actual plate is solidly into that hinge, so it's never going to move. And that means that on vellum I can get these beautiful, almost ephemeral looking, really, really delicate. Look how delicate that is. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so brilliant for vellum. But here's two almost impossible surfaces to work with. Window sheet and a foil. Lovely crisp images, don't you think? Well, all you need to do is use your, in fact, I'll show you. I was going to just talk you through it, but I will show you. Hang on. Let's just take a little bit of foil. Okay, let's find a little greeting that we want. So let's say it's going to go there. Okay, now here's the only thing that I would say is, because the ink itself will stay wet on the surface if you're using anything other than StazOn. So you do need to use a StazOn ink for this if you're wanting to get really crisp text on either window sheet or foil. But look, no slipping, no sliding, no smearing. Perfect, wonderful image. Let me just hold it up because I know it's sheeny and shiny. There we go. I made you a card because you're worth it. And if you're using both window sheet or any of the foils, I do love this foil, don't you? It's the champagne foil. So there you go. You can work with texture, you can repair problems, and you can get things beautifully lined up. And come back again to session 4 and I will start to use the other hinge. Hooray! Thanks very much. Bye bye.